Hey students, Mr. Parker coming at you with a short lecture on symbolic archetypes. So we're going to try out this flipped lecture style. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you the rest of the notes here in a video. What I want you to do is pause after each explanation so that you can write down anything that is on the slide. You don't need to write down the exact examples. What I want you to do is bring several of your own examples to class. So maybe jot down one of the examples that makes sense to you, or if you're really confident on it, write down an example, and then we're going to be asking for different things in class. So let's talk symbols, right? There's a reason that bad guys usually wear black and good guys usually wear white, right? Symbolic archetypes, archetypes that take the form of colors, elements, shapes, and natural events all fall into this category, right? We have had character archetypes. We've also had situational archetypes. Now we're talking symbols, things that you can see on or within a character or within a situation, but are not either a character or a situation. So let's move along. So the first and most obvious, right? Light and darkness. Light usually suggests hope, renewal, or intellectual illumination. Darkness implies the unknown, ignorance, or despair. So, light side and dark side of Jedi and Sith, right? Intellectual illumination is an interesting part here. So that means like any science-focused area, any smart people area in a movie is usually going to be brightly lit, right? Camino, where they've created the clones, that basically are like they're scientists, so that's going to be brightly lit. And conversely, any area that's dark in a movie, you're going to be thinking like, is this a bad guy? If you got introduced to a main character or a new character in a show or a movie, and they're like sitting in a dark, shadowy room, somewhere in the back of your mind, you're already deciding that that guy's probably a bad guy, right? So any prison in a movie is going to be dark, right? All right, let's move on to water and desert. And as a reminder, you can pause in between each of these, and I would recommend, if you know this well or you want to get through it quickly, be sure to take the notes, but you can speed me up by changing the speed of the video. All right, water and desert. Because water is necessary to life and growth, it commonly appears as both a birth or rebirth symbol. Water is used in baptismal services, which solemnizes spiritual births and rebirths. The example here might be Rime of the Ancient Mariner or V for Vendetta. There's a scene in that movie where a character has sort of come out of a very harrowing experience into the real world where it is raining, and she just stands in the rain and takes it in and begins to cry, right? It's sort of a transcendent moment where she is then reborn, and then the rest of the movie she goes on to be a sort of different character. Conversely, the aridity of the desert is often associated with spiritual sterility. So the wasteland, the Valley of Ashes in The Great Gatsby, and then in Star Wars, Tatooine. It's a dead-end planet. There's nothing much to do here. And that's where people go to hide, not really to live, right? Obi-Wan and Luke are both there kind of stuck in this sterile or a place of no growth, right? All right, moving on. Heaven versus hell. So, man has traditionally associated parts of the universe not accessible to him with the dwelling places of the primordial forces that govern his world. Primordial forces meaning like any godlike beings that created or can have power over the world. So in places like mountaintops and in the clouds and in the stars, oftentimes old stories will talk about like the gods lived in Olympus at the top of a mountain, right? Or the bowels of the earth that contain diabolic forces that inhibit the universe, right? So if your character goes into a literal cave, they may be about to experience a harrowing personal experience. That's why we think of, right, your God sitting on top of a cloud or the devil in the deep bowels of the mountain or the bowels of the cave, right? The bottom, darkest section. These may feel really obvious, but when you start to look for them in areas in different books, like, okay, this character went to the top of a mountain, or we met somebody and they were staring at the stars, or they were staring at the clouds. Those things tell you certain things about characters, especially in a more traditional book, a classical literature. All right. Now this is a fun one. Innate wisdom versus educated stupidity. Some characters exhibit wisdom and understanding of situations instinctively, as opposed to those supposedly in charge. So this one, I can't help but think of Dungeons and Dragons. You've got your intelligence score, you've got your wisdom score, and they do different things. A great example of this is in Lord of the Rings, Sam and Frodo. Frodo's got a better education. Sam's the one that keeps them alive. Alfred, the butler to Batman, is another great example. Alfred is like, Master Bruce, and then he like dishes some knowledge, whereas Bruce Wayne, he's like super wealthy, super smart, but misses things, right? The idea that Holmes always needs a Watson to keep him grounded. So this line, loyal retainers often exhibit this wisdom as they accompany them on their journey. So if you're looking at pairs of people, most often if in a duo sort of story, you're going to have the smart character and you're going to have the wise character. And oftentimes that wise character will downplay their stuff. They'll talk, I'm not so smart, but I know this, or I learned this the hard way, or things like that. Moving on. Supernatural intervention, another symbolic archetype. So the gods intervening on the side of the hero, or sometimes against him. So in Lord of the Rings, you got the eagles. They pick the Sam and Frodo up off of the mountain, and then they save their lives to go off on their way. Or in the Odyssey, in a lot of Greek and Roman myths, the gods were always getting up in people's business for some reason or another. All right, another symbolic archetype is the magic weapon. The magic sword of Excalibur, perhaps. The magic weapon symbolizes the extraordinary quality of the hero because no one else can wield the weapon or use it to its full potential. Let's see, can we say the Elder Wand for this one? Odysseus's bow, Thor's hammer. Thor is literally the only one who is worthy enough to wield his hammer. By the rules stated in the Thor thing, whosoever is worthy can wield the mighty weapon of Mjolnir, right? It is usually given by a mentor figure, right? Obi-Wan at the beginning of Star Wars. This was your father's lightsaber, right? Only Jedi get to use lightsabers, except for a few choice moments. It's fine. But that's a very stereotypical magic weapon. All right, on. Fire and ice. So, fire representing knowledge, light, life, and rebirth, while ice, similar to the desert, represents ignorance, darkness, sterility, and death. Sterility means no life grows here. No life can come here, right? The phoenix, right? In Harry Potter, you've got Fawkes, the phoenix. Phoenixes are literally these magic beings that will burst into flames and be reborn. So they get old, burst into flames, and be reborn as a small bird. Let's see, I had another really good one for this. Yes, okay, so fire representing knowledge, light, and life. So if you know the story of Prometheus, he literally steals fire from the gods to bring it back to humans. He steals the knowledge of fire from the gods and then gives it to the humans, and then, is destined to be tortured by the gods for that for all of eternity. Again, if you've got a character who is introduced to you in an icy tundra, or sometimes space can be this way, right? Space is cold. But yeah, these two things, if they show up, knowledge, light, life, rebirth, or ignorance, darkness, sterility, and death. And that's all I got. So make sure you get those notes down, and make sure you've got several examples for class so that we can talk about them. Thank you.